Have you ever opened the fridge, found some leftover rice or fried rice from yesterday, reheated it, and thought, well, it still tastes fine, so it must be safe to eat? For many people, that's a normal part of life. Rice is one of the most common staple foods worldwide, and nobody likes wasting it. But what if I told you that reheated rice could actually make you seriously ill? In fact, there's even a name for it: Reheated Rice Syndrome. It's a foodborne illness caused by a sneaky bacterium called Bacillus cereus, and it's far more common than most people realize. The scary part is that the rice can look, smell, and taste completely normal, and yet within just a few hours of eating it, you might find yourself doubled over with stomach cramps, sudden vomiting, or explosive diarrhea. Many people have had this experience, but never connected the dots that their leftover rice was the culprit. And because the illness usually passes within a day, it often goes unreported, making it seem less dangerous than it really is. But the truth is, in some cases, especially for children, the elderly, or people with weaker immune systems, reheated rice syndrome can be severe and even life-threatening. So what makes rice so different from other foods? Why is it that eating leftover rice is riskier than, say, leftover pasta or chicken? The answer lies in the way rice interacts with heat, storage, and bacteria. In today's video, we're going to uncover the science behind reheated rice syndrome. We'll look closely at the signs and symptoms you need to watch out for, why they occur in the body, and what actually happens inside your stomach and intestines when you eat contaminated rice. By the end, you'll know exactly how to protect yourself and your family from this often overlooked food safety hazard. So, the next time you think about reheating that leftover fried rice, you'll pause, remember what you've learned here, and make a smarter choice for your health. Now, what exactly is reheated rice syndrome? When we talk about reheated rice syndrome, we're really talking about a type of food poisoning that has been linked over and over again to one particular food, leftover rice. However, this isn't just about reheating food. It's not as simple as saying, hot rice is safe, cold rice is dangerous. Instead, the problem lies in a microscopic player called Bacillus cereus. This is a bacterium that exists all around us, in soil, dust, water, and even on the surfaces of raw food. Most of the time, it doesn't cause us harm. But rice, for reasons we'll soon explore, happens to be one of its favorite hiding places. Here's why rice is unique. Unlike meat or vegetables, rice is made up of dense starch granules that can actually shelter bacterial spores, the tough, dormant form of Bacillus cereus, even during cooking. Boiling, steaming, or frying rice at high heat may kill many bacteria, but the spores can survive. They just sit there, quietly waiting. Once the rice cools down and is left sitting at room temperature, those spores wake up, transform back into active bacteria, and start multiplying very quickly. Within just a few hours, that seemingly innocent bowl of rice can become a breeding ground for toxins. Now, what makes this syndrome different from other food poisonings is that it's not only the bacteria themselves that cause trouble. Bacillus cereus produces toxins, chemical poisons, that directly irritate the stomach and intestines. And here's the real kicker: these toxins are heat stable. That means even if you reheat your rice until it's steaming hot, those toxins remain intact. So you might think you've killed any germs by heating it, but in reality, you've just warmed up a dish that already contains invisible poison. Why the illness got its nickname, fried rice syndrome. Let's continue by looking at the types of infections caused by Bacillus cereus. The first type is called the emetic, or vomiting type of infection. This is the one most often linked to reheated rice, which is why the condition is sometimes nicknamed fried rice syndrome. The culprit here is a toxin called cereulide. What makes cereulide unique is that it's incredibly stable. It can withstand heat, acid, and even some digestive enzymes. That means once it's produced in the rice before you eat it, reheating the food won't destroy it. When cereulide gets into your stomach, it acts quickly, usually within 1 to 5 hours. It irritates the stomach lining and stimulates the vomiting center in your brain, which is why people often feel sudden nausea followed by repeated bouts of vomiting. The illness usually passes within 24 hours, but the abrupt and violent nature of it makes it quite distressing. The second type is called the diarrheal type of infection, and it works in a very different way. Instead of the toxin being preformed in the food, here the spores of Bacillus cereus travel into the intestines, where they germinate and release toxins inside your gut. These toxins interfere with the lining of the intestines, making them leak fluid and electrolytes. The result is watery diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and sometimes mild fever. The onset is slower than the vomiting type, typically showing up 6 to 15 hours after eating contaminated food, and it can last a day or two. Because it resembles other stomach bugs, many people don't realize it's caused by rice or other starchy foods like pasta or potatoes that were left out too long. What's particularly important to note is that Bacillus cereus isn't limited to rice alone. While rice is the most famous example, these infections have also been traced to contaminated pasta, soups, sauces, and even dairy products. Anywhere spores can survive cooking and the food is left sitting at room temperature, there's potential for the bacteria to multiply and release toxins. So, in simple terms, the type of infection you experience depends on where the toxin does its damage. If the toxin is already in the rice before you eat it, you get the vomiting type. If the bacteria multiply in your gut after you eat the spores, you get the diarrheal type. Both are unpleasant, both can be dangerous in vulnerable people, and both remind us why proper food storage and handling are so important. How dangerous is reheated rice syndrome really? By now you may be thinking, okay, so eating reheated rice can cause vomiting or diarrhea. But is it really that serious? After all, most cases sound like food poisoning that goes away in a day. And for the majority of healthy adults, that's true. The illness is usually self-limiting, meaning it passes within 24 hours as your body flushes out the toxin or the bacteria. But while most people recover, there are important reasons why food safety experts take this syndrome very seriously. First, let's talk about severity in vulnerable groups. For young, healthy individuals, the biggest risk is simply discomfort, the sudden vomiting, cramps, and fatigue that ruin your day. But for infants, young children, older adults, and people with weakened immune systems, the situation can escalate quickly. Vomiting and diarrhea lead to rapid loss of fluids and electrolytes. In a child with a much smaller body size, or in an older adult who already has health conditions, dehydration can happen frighteningly fast. If it isn't corrected with fluids, it can lead to hospitalization. In rare cases, it can even be fatal. Second, there's the problem of underreporting. Because the illness often resolves on its own, many people don't seek medical care. They chalk it up to a stomach bug or something I ate, and they recover at home. That means cases don't get counted in official statistics, and the syndrome seems less common than it actually is. Third, while most cases are mild, there have been documented instances of severe complications. In one well-known case in Europe, a teenager died after eating spaghetti that had been left out too long and contaminated with Bacillus cereus. The toxins produced in that food didn't just cause stomach upset, they triggered multi-organ failure. While this is extremely rare, it highlights the fact that the bacteria and its toxins can be much more than just a mild nuisance. Another reason this syndrome is considered dangerous is the deceptive nature of the food. Rice contaminated with Bacillus cereus doesn't look spoiled. It doesn't smell bad, and it doesn't taste different. That false sense of safety leads people to reheat it without a second thought. Compare that to spoiled milk, which smells sour, or rotten meat, which looks and smells disgusting. With rice, there's no natural warning sign, so people are more likely to consume it without realizing the risk. Finally, reheated rice syndrome is dangerous because it is preventable, but only if people know the rules. Most of the time, foodborne illness feels random, like something you can't avoid. But with Bacillus cereus, the chain of events is clear: spores survive cooking, rice is left at room temperature, bacteria multiply, toxins are produced, and illness follows. If the rice is handled properly after cooking, this chain never gets the chance to unfold. That's why awareness is so important. Once you understand how the syndrome works, you can take simple steps to protect yourself and your family. So, how dangerous is it? For most people, it's an unpleasant but temporary illness. For the vulnerable, it can be much more serious. And in rare, extreme cases, it can even be deadly. The real danger lies in the fact that it's invisible, deceptive, and widely underappreciated. The next time you or someone you know eats reheated rice and feels suddenly sick, it's worth remembering this timeline. Vomiting within hours usually points to the emetic form, while diarrhea many hours later suggests the diarrheal form. Recognizing these patterns not only helps you understand what's happening inside your body, but also underscores why food safety practices matter so much with rice and other starches. What have we learned about reheated rice syndrome? At first glance, it might sound like just another food poisoning story, but it's far more specific and far more fascinating. At the heart of it is a tiny but resilient bacterium called Bacillus cereus. This bug survives cooking in the form of spores, waits for the right conditions, and then either produces a toxin in the rice that makes you vomit within hours or multiplies in your intestines to cause diarrhea and cramps many hours later. Two very different sets of symptoms, but one single culprit. The important thing to remember is that the rice doesn't look spoiled, it doesn't smell bad, and it doesn't taste strange. That's what makes it so deceptive. You can't rely on your senses to tell you whether leftover rice is safe or dangerous. Once those toxins are in the food, reheating it until it's steaming won't fix the problem. The poison has already been made, and your body will react as soon as it encounters it. For most people, the illness is short-lived. A miserable day of vomiting or diarrhea, then things settle down. But for infants, the elderly, or those whose immune systems are already compromised, even a day of severe fluid loss can lead to real danger. And in rare cases, as some outbreaks have shown, the consequences can be much worse. This isn't just about a stomach ache, it can, in extreme circumstances, be life-threatening. The next time you're tempted to leave a pot of rice sitting on the counter for hours, or tuck leftover fried rice into the fridge long after dinner, remember what you've learned here. So, the big takeaway is this: reheated rice syndrome is real, it has clear signs and symptoms, and it happens because of one very particular bacteria. But it's not inevitable. By understanding how and why it occurs, you can protect yourself and your loved ones, and still enjoy rice safely. If this video has helped you see your leftovers in a whole new light, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to the channel for more health topics explained in a way that's clear, engaging, and practical. And let me know in the comments, have you ever had a stomach upset you now think might have been reheated rice syndrome? Your story might just help someone else make a safer choice.